Hey there, it's Trisha, and I wanted to go over something that occurred yesterday, which will be really helpful for you to be able to enter trades if everything's not quite in line when taking an entry off the 200 tick chart. We use two entries, setups, trading the ES, and we use charts with indicators for confirmation before we ever get in a trade, and you can check those out at www.easyemintrade.com. Now, I wanted to point out that the purpose of the videos that I record is so everyone that has the setups that I've done in the ebook have an easier time recognizing the different setups. So they're not meant to be a daily journal of everything that we do. It's just meant to help with the different setups and hopefully help in your recognition of them as well. So with that said, yesterday was about 12:58 and you had this large bar here closing below your moving average, both moving averages, your 50% retracement, and you had a squeeze firing off on your 200 tick chart. And I wanted to show you this because this will help you to just change tick charts and find an entry a little bit later. If you notice where my crosshairs are, the squeeze is firing off on the 200 tick, but the bar on our longer tick chart is not closed yet. And I typically like it to be closed below that longer term moving average before I'll take an entry. So by the time that closed, you'll see that we were already over here. Many blue dots had already passed on the squeeze. I'm not willing to enter the squeeze when that many bars or dots have gone by. A lot of people will enter as long as they're still blue. And again, that's a personal preference. You can do whatever works for you. So if you were just looking at a 200 tick chart, you would never had another opportunity to enter that if you were waiting for that to close on our longer tick chart. Now, of course, like I said, you don't have to wait for that to close. It's going to be your personal choice. I wait because oftentimes it'll turn into a bottoming tail and pop back up. And sometimes that works just fine because you'll get your target and then it pops back up. Again, totally up to you how you wanted to enter those. I'm just giving you my perspective. So we can't take it here on the 200 tick chart. But what you could do is you could look at a 377 tick or a 512, and I'll show you the 512 as well. On the 377, you'll notice that it's firing off later, and of course, the longer the tick frame, the later it's going to fire off. So right here is where the bar closes on our longer tick chart, right where that arrow is. So the bar is closed there, and you actually could have entered in right where this arrow is. So that would have allowed you another opportunity to enter if you were waiting for this to close, whereas you didn't have it on the 200. And on the 512, you would have had the opportunity to enter under this bar. So if you keep up another tick chart that's basically falls in between your 2000 and your 200, you'll notice that you'll have opportunities to jump in the squeeze, whereas if you were waiting for the MACD to be exactly in line or the bar to close under or over a moving average, that where you didn't have the opportunity on the 200 to enter, you could enter in on a later entry on one of the other tick charts. So just something to consider. And that worked out fine yesterday. That actually occurred during lunch. I was not here during lunch, so I did not have the opportunity, unfortunately, to take that trade. But I did want to point out how you're able to do that. And realistically, if you entered on the 377 or 512, you would have entered basically within a quarter of each on each of those charts. So again, not a huge difference in entering a little bit later in that aspect. So anyway, I hope that helps. And you can check that out, our setups that we use, at www.easyemintrade.com.